You look good, you have all of the something they bought you. Yes, goodie!
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Goodgal Podcast, and I'm here with the beautiful and educated Miss Jelaine Phoenix.
Everyone.
So Jelaine is a teacher, and just tell them about yourself.
Okay, guys. So I am officially a math teacher. I just started recently. So since September, my teaching practice ended in June, and I'm coming from corporate, so I saw the need for math teachers, and I just felt like it was something that I've always loved to do. I've worked with special education kids, basically all my life. I've tutored anyone who's ever asked, so this is just the right path for me, and I've been loving it since.
That's interesting, like the leap from corporate to becoming like a teacher, especially now with everything that's happening outside of like, because I know you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the love.
Right.
So what was that jump that made you decide, I need to do this? Like, what was that moment?
For me, it was realizing that my efforts were not being placed into anything but somebody's bottom line while I was working in corporate. It was like I was overexhausting myself and working, and I couldn't see where I was adding value. Like, I could see that I was adding to somebody's pocket, but I couldn't see that I was actually making an impact in the world. So it was like an internal conflict for me. And as I said, teaching was something that I was always into, that I always loved. Just working with kids and just being able to educate somebody, take them from darkness to light. That was always something that gave me joy. So
yeah. Wow, guys, Jelaine is one of God's, fallen angels. Like that's truly amazing, right? So you started teaching, during the pandemic and all of that, right? So in your experience, and then you teach high school.
yes,
Yeah.
I teach grades 7, 8, and 10 right now.
Okay. So you're really like young, mid, and like older going out of the school. Okay, cool. So you have like a full understanding of everything. So how has the return to full-time and in-person learning been affected? Because I've been seeing things on like TikTok where teachers, well, this is the US, but teachers have been saying, the kids in 7th grade are reading at the 4th grade level and learning. Is that your experience here in Jamaica?
Definitely. When I'm saying America sneeze, we catch the cold. I can see it definitely in terms of the younger kids the kids who were in grade 10 who started high school in the COVID time. A lot of them didn't have access to technology. A lot of their parents didn't really know how to operate the things. And I think it was also hard for teachers because they had to make a big jump to go from, being able to stand up at the board and write on the right board. You had to learn about Google Classrooms and brainwaves and all these, technological interface that would actually help the kids to learn. And then, some people get lost in the mix. But I definitely saw a negative impact. And I mean, even recently, I'm doing my master's, and I did a research paper in June, and it was basically speaking to the impact that COVID had on students in grade 7. So utilizing manipulatives and different ways to kind of reach them, because the kids are behind. The kids are so behind, not just in numeracy on my end. I find that a lot of the kids, before we even get to the numbers, they can't read. So you can't read a problem.
You're not going to be able to,
be able to solve it. So it's like, it's difficult.
It's difficult. So there's a task to be had. So is there any strategies that the teachers have employed to kind of mitigate against this? Is there like extra class, or is there any suggestions for like the parents that are listening? Is there things that they can do to assist with this? Is there something or we can do to make it better on like you are teachers?
I mean, definitely support and reinforcement. And this has always been the case even before COVID. We can't do it on our own. I mean, the kids are only there from 7:30 to 2 or 3 p.m. in the afternoon. There needs to be reinforcement that happens at home. So if we send home homework, sit with your kids and try to do homework. And I know that that's not always possible for a lot of parents who work in late hours, or you might not have the time, or you yourself might not even know how to do the homework. But I mean, just the efforts to sit with the kids, checking on them, because it's not, as I said, sometimes it's not just the work. Sometimes it's outside of that. Sometimes they have issues within the classroom, social issues. There's outside, because these kids, I come to find that since COVID, they're much more online, like chronically online, and so they're not just vulnerable to the school community. It's not like the wider society. Magnifying glass, and so just pay attention and give them a little bit more support. Is what I would say.
Okay, fair. Now, is there any like silver linings? Because you said they're more online, and I'm like heavily on TikTok these days, right? That's like my social media of choice these days. And I see where they're, for example, even if I brought up a math problem to my mom, she couldn't necessarily help me because the math I'm learning is different from the math she was learning. So now I realize I saw I think I was a parent on TikTok or a college student, I think, put in like a math problem and they show you step by step. So do you recommend that like when they're doing homework, do you think that helps with the understanding for like the parents, or do you see more like dangers in that with like AI and all of that? Like how do you feel about that space?
I feel like there is good and bad in the situation, because positive in where technology can be a tool. It's so effective. We use it in the classrooms. We use our smart boards to do asynchronous learning, so the kids who would have missed out before they can catch up. So there are positives to it, and
what is asynchronous learning?
So that's when we're able to upload the lessons and they can do it within their own time.
Okay.
Kids who miss out school for one reason or the next, or if you missed out on a lesson, you can always go back, and it is not just in person in class. Whatever we learned there, if you're not there, you're missing it, you're gone. So it is a tool that is helpful, but then there's way for misinformation to be spread. Yes, the parents can be going to these sites and saying, let me try to help you, but then it can be ineffective if it's contradicting what the teacher is trying to get across in the class. And there's the big issue of it being a distraction as well, because the kids telling the parents them going on YouTube to watch a video or going on Khan Academy or do school things, and then you scroll and it's a next video to laugh at. It's a distraction. I mean, they pay for attention online, so I can see how easily the kids could be impacted by negatively impacted by that.
So it's a balancing act, really, and it's something that again we have to work together with teachers. So it's the thing is, I think what I realized from what you're saying, it's a community approach. It's not just like a one-off thing. Now, in light of recent times, we see where there's a lot of violence in schools. We saw a young boy who was like literally brutally attacked because, and then even the after effects, I feel like people are talking about the attack and all of that, but like the people that were around and, the different responses. So do you see more violence in school these days than when you were going to school? Or do you, what is your experience in that side, and how does it, compare to like when you were in school or what you've seen in the past?
I was literally thinking about that this week, because at school that I'm currently at, the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Education had this joint program for restorative justice.
Okay.
So they're basically teaching preventative methods so that we can, kind of de-escalate conflicts before it even gets to that point.
Okay.
So they were discussing the very same point, the kids getting beat up, and I had to think back, like when I was in high school, was there any major conflict? And yes, there was. I remember during champs when it was one school versus the next school, and people literally died from champs, and they had to put in the peace for champs thing.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
So I feel like it's always been a thing, but now I feel like it's a little bit out of control.
Because it's actually getting like physical in a lot of cases. Because that's what I was thinking too, not to call you, but I feel like I've heard of fights, but I feel like these days, every single fight I hear about in a school, it's a physical thing where people are going to like the hospital, the doctor, that type of thing.
And I feel like we're also very desensitized to the situation, because it's like, oh, a boy gets stabbed up, next thing, oh, a boy get beat up. Okay, next. Like, we're so desensitized, and there's even in the classroom, somewhere that I worked before, there would be fights happening literally almost every day, sometimes twice a day. And in the staff room, you'd hear the uproaring in the background of like the fight is happening, and the teachers just look up, oh, okay, fight, like another day, another dollar, and it's like where is the care?
The empathy.
And I can understand where they're coming from, because you're so used to it. You become,
if you're hearing something every day,
every single day, you become more than it. I mean, there's some teachers who do step up and do try to, mitigate and try to de-escalate the conflicts happening within the schools, but they're risking their own
lives and
lives, being on the front line for one, and then being at the risk of ridicule. You separate the fight and you pull off the wrong person, you hear that the parents saying that you make the child get beat up. So it's like, do you take the passive approach, or do you take an active role to try to de-escalate the conflict? It's rough.
It's rough. Do you think that there's more? Because for me, I don't think there was any, even if, let's say, when I was going to school, but in my high school, we didn't really do anything much. Like, it was a very calm school. I went to Meadowbrook High, so we were like very, very chill, right? But we had our moments and we had our fights, but do you think that teachers now more fear the students? So, like, there are situations where you're scared of students, because when I was going to school, I feel like no matter who you were, you respected the teachers enough, like a fearful respect, right? Like, my old principal, she literally just had to step out and he just quiet. I don't feel like I see, but I'm not in school, so I don't feel like I see that type of fear of respect, or that fear of God type of thing, that and not that their principles are God's, but that type of respect, but that same respect that comes with love and just doing the right thing when you see them, even if you're like the most delinquent person ever. Do you think that because them people don't look like them not no fear?
They are not afraid
of anything.
The teachers are afraid. The teachers are afraid, but like, I feel like, as in any case, you just have to be strong with them. They're kids at the end of the day. We're the adults, like, we are in charge of molding their minds. So you have to put your foot down in certain situations. As much as you may be afraid because you're risking your life, these kids come from rough backgrounds. Sometimes you don't know where they're coming in from. You don't know what they're exposed to. And sometimes they just need a listening ear, a comforting conversation. And that could be the difference between them going to stab up somebody and them sitting down and reading a book. So yes, there is fear going into any job. There's always something that can happen on the job. But I feel like, because we care enough, because we have to, like, these are the next doctors, lawyers, hairdressers that are going to take care of us when we're older. You have to risk it for this kid. And as a teacher, right, do you think that, because I noticed, like, what I noticed, or just in my eyes, is that there's a spike in violence, and now there's like a teacher shortage, so most teachers are leaving. What do you think about that? Like, because you seem very patriotic at the fact that you left corporate and you came into this space, right? So you're one of the rare few. Like, is it something where, let's say, an opportunity presents itself? I know you'd never say never, like, you'd be open to anything or any possibility, but what, like, do you think there's a correlation between that violence and now the teacher shortage? And apart from just helping, like, what do you think can be done to make it easier on the teachers? Like, parental helping, but is there anything, like, practical strategies that we can actually put in play to help? With the kids? I mean, first of all, I do think that when these teachers are leaving, they're going into situations that are completely different from their home base. But when they are, recruiting teachers from here, that's something that they look for, surprisingly. Like, if you work in the more inner city schools before, they think that, you're more apt to manage schools over there, because the kids are a little bit more, they're just raised differently than Jamaica. And certain values that we have here, they wouldn't have there. And so you have to come in with a really strong back to work overseas. But I feel like locally, what can be done to help us? The parents, we need your support, parents. We really need your support. Repeat the question.
No, it's fine. In terms of practical solutions, but on that point, I like that point of the parents, because do you see where there's not as many parents at, like, PTA meetings, all of that? Like, is that, like, them coming to the school, doing that type of involvement, even from, like, a corporate Jamaica? Like, what can these companies do or people do to help?
Okay, I would say definitely I see the difference. At the school that I am at, though, they really encourage the parents. Like, I mean, we're interfacing very closely with the school that I'm at currently. I mean, if there's any absence, the parents are notified. If there's a grade missing, the parents are notified immediately. But that's not the standard across the board. I mean, I would say that my school really pushes for that interaction because they realize the support that they can get from the parents. I mean, down to in the morning to get the kids in earlier, parents will stop and direct traffic, park the car and direct traffic because they know the kids need to get in at a certain time. Settled. I can work out if they're not settled, they're not ready to learn. So I do see the role that parents play in helping. On the corporate end, funding. The
need money
alone cannot do it. Bring the bags, guys. We cannot afford it. Social programs. I mean, even reaching out to PTA. There at my school, they have a breakfast program.
Oh, nice.
So the kids that come in early, they get a food. They're incentivized to come in, make sure they're there on time so they can sit down and eat a meal in the morning time. So,
and when they're less hungry, they're more likely to learn and can focus.
That's one thing Miss Phoenix don't teach on Hunger Belly. The kids ask me sometimes they come in late from lunchtime, the smaller kids bullied in lunch and they're not getting their lunch. Eat your lunch. You can't learn on a Hunger Belly. I'm not that type of teacher. So I just feel like there's little things that we can do to ease the stress and make it a more an easier experience for the kids. Take out all the distractions, take out everything that would make it a little bit harder, because I know we went through it and we made it out, but our job is not to make our children's lives harder.
And struggle the same way.
We want to make it easier for them so that they can do better than us.
Yeah. I mean, listening to you, like, I'm actually so in awe because you really seem like you're passionate about teaching and all of that. And I feel like that's something that is so rare these days. Are there a lot of teachers that are similar to you, or do you notice, not to throw anybody under the bus, but just overall in your professional space, is it more like a nonchalant or because sometimes when you're not in the classroom as a parent, you're wondering, a lot of times parents are like, teacher not teaching or whatever, but like, is that true, that whole mindset that we have as Jamaicans sometimes?
I feel like anywhere that I've gone, even when I was in school, the teachers that wanted to be there, you could tell the difference. I mean, they show up for you. You have a question, you can pull them aside, they'll ask. Not just on the academic side, they show up for you on the social side, like making sure that you're okay, checking in with everything at home. Those are teachers who you can tell care about the kids, and they make the difference, because as I said, we only have them from 7:30 to 2 p.m. What happens outside of that for the rest of the day, that can significantly impact what is happening when they get here at 7:30 in the morning. So I feel like the teachers that take the time to, go out of their way to get to know the kids and try to put enough effort to make it a whole experience, and not just go for put some lesson on the board, learn if you learn it, that's just it.
And make it interesting, right? Make it fun. Like, I think that's one thing that I think I'm jealous of people who are like in school now. When I like look on social media and I see like the modern teachers, like, I wish I had a millennial teacher, you know what I mean? Because I feel like you guys really spend your own money and do a lot of things to make sure that kids feel appreciated. And honestly, we just want to thank you. Like, I know, and I really thank you for coming on the platform and sharing your perspective. So I think the key takeaways for me was that, from even a company perspective, so from a corporate side, it's funding into the right programs and situations, because based on what you said as well, it's not just because the school that you're at now, you've been at other schools that are not as organized, but the school that you're at now sounds very organized. So maybe it's also an approach to say, okay, following some best practices of schools that we see that these things are not happening in. So maybe that's also a conversation that we need to have as a country to say, okay, this school is doing this pretty well. We're seeing a low percentage of violence here. Maybe we need to take some of their structure and then put funding into different programs, and also coming together as a community and working with parents, and not just parents, because a lot of us take care of our siblings, like, siblings, aunties, whatever. Once you have a child that is in school, you need to be very active and playing a role. So I thank you for being on the platform. And is there any other key takeaways that you'd want to leave with anybody And is there like, is there any way people can, or do you want people to contact you? I'm not even sure if you want to do that or put your info out there, or just any closing words.
I just wanted to say, guys, love your teachers. They really go out of their way every single day, and they show up with a smile and interface with you every single day. Big up a teacher if you can, and give them a whiteboard marker if you can. The whiteboard markers finish so quickly, and that's not something I was prepared for.
And those are small things you can do as a community. Like you yourself, you can buy a pack of whiteboard marker and go give to some teachers. So you know what I mean? Just think of the small things that we can do to assist with everything going on, because our teachers do go through a lot, and we see a lot happening in our schools. So yeah. Thank you. And that was another episode of the Goodgal Podcast, and we'll see you next week. Bye.